we have a scientific study still around: experiences and survival strategies of veteran women software developers. The abstract reads, "The intersection of ageism and sexism can create a hostile environment for veteran software developers belonging to marginalized genders." In this study in 2023 here, we conducted 14 interviews to examine the experiences of people at this intersection, primarily women, in order to discover the strategies they employed in order to successfully remain in the field. We identified 283 codes, which fell into three main categories: strategies, experiences, and perception. Several strategies we identified, such as deliberately not trying to look younger, were not previously described in the software engineering literature. We found that in some companies, older women developers are recognized as having particular value, further strengthening the known benefits of diversity in the workforce. Based on the experiences and strategies, we suggest organizations employing software developers to consider the benefits of hiring veteran women software developers. For example, companies can draw upon the life experiences of older women developers in order to better understand the needs of customers from a similar demographic. While we recognize that many of the strategies employed by our study participants are a response to systemic issues, we will still consider that in the short term there is benefit in describing these strategies for developers who are experiencing such issues today. You have a number of issues with this study right off the bat in the abstract, which is that it primes men to assume that because they're in software, they automatically look at women in this way, and it primes women to automatically assume that men look at them this way. It's essentially priming both genders into assuming that once you get into the software industry, you are looked at and treated in a particular way. Now, there is something that they go right into, which becomes ideological. Where is it here? I have it in my notes. Well, established. Let's see. No? Apparently I took notes that don't exist. In any case, what they describe here in the abstract is that sexism is apparently a well-established notion, and it's well-established particularly in the software field. That's what they start with. So again, I just want to state that it immediately employs ideological, let's say, beliefs into priming people into believing one way or the other. Now, on page 5, we have some quotes from women who participated in this study. One participant describes how companies specifically looking to develop products aimed at her demographic, which led to opportunities. A company approached me and said that they were in the business. They wanted to make an app that would help predict who would have a stroke. They were like, our ideal candidate would be a woman of color who has also survived a stroke. Why is it a requirement that in order to study people who have survived strokes, you must target women of color as part of your tech background program that you're trying here? I've been a director of game programming, and at the senior software engineer level, I still get people who are trying to talk to me thinking that I won't understand technical concepts. Now, I will say that there are people who exist who treat other people like this, but it is not exclusively of women. Men do this to each other all the time. But I can see, I can understand why, you might make a statement like this. There are examples that suggest women face ageism. I was discounted because I felt like people thought I was young. As I approached menopause, there was another shift of just this contempt because you're not even a sexually available female, and there's, no, I don't even have an interest in having sex with you, so why would I ever listen to you? You're going to try and tell me I'm wrong, and you're unattractive. So it only gets worse. Noah here says, I'm old enough to know that I can get another job. I'm old enough to know where I can put my skills. I have a network that I've built up, which comes as a positive of kind of like the age as you get older. Some people say that they are listened to more because they're older. There's more. There are a lot of unwelcome words that are used towards women that actually exercise the same actions that men do. I have no idea what the hell this means. I really don't. What the hell is this statement? I just don't know. Especially when they start getting to you're not technical enough. I don't know how many men with the same equivalent skills as a woman in testing get called not technical enough. Well, that's the problem, is you don't know how many men do. Many men do. I have been sexually harassed at most of my jobs up until I turned 40. I've had some clients who said if you were a male consultant, I would certainly pay you what you're asking, but you're female. I currently coach another woman on my team. She is a textbook discriminated woman, but she attracts it. I don't know what this means. People would tell you to your face that, like, you needed to be sweeter, like you needed to be more feminine and you needed to be pretty, or, all of those things. Bro, not bro. I guess not bro. It's really exhausting to try to just sort of prove your existence over and over again, or prove your competency over and over again. That's annoying. Newsflash, men have to suffer this too in the industry, especially in the tech industry. It never goes away because that's the nature of the industry, which is why I go over a bunch of other stuff in these daily tech news streams. I was always the first woman, and people found that special and also encouraged me. Hey, that's a positive. Sometimes there is a subtle or not so subtle kind of hostile atmosphere, which can vary from simply not wanting to be in that kind of locker room environment to outright hostility. This continues. I could read more and more. We're not going to read all of them. It would take forever. But some of these are just crazy. And some of them are positive. And some of them conflate what happens to men as if it only happens to women. And again, the reason why women look at stuff like this and they go, well, it must be because I'm a woman, is because they're primed to think that way. So when you see two or more men treating each other in this way in the tech industry, it's normal. This has happened ever since I joined. You get trash talked. You constantly have to prove yourself. There's an insane amount of pressure. Ageism is also a thing for men, etc. But when you have scientific studies like this that bundle in the ideology of women have a special affinity towards experiencing these things, then women see it everywhere. Whether it happens mostly to women or mostly to men becomes irrespective of what women feel like they experience. It's a priming thing. And when you go down to the threats to validity here in section 6 in threats here, what typically is supposed to happen in these sections in scientific studies are supposed to provide actual threats to the validity of the study. But you know what they spend half the time doing here? Half the time in this section, they spend explaining the threats. And then the other half the time, they excuse the threats. Yes, we know there's a threat here to our study, but systemic sexism, though. So we're right. That's what the threat section is. This is not actually useful. Can I agree that there are issues in the tech industry with how men treat women? Yes. I can also agree that there are issues with how women treat men, and how men treat men, and how women treat women. But the problem is that when you have scientific studies like this, you prime people to come with a predetermined expectation or attitude that colors their view on what actually happens when they're in it. It's not helpful. Has to stop. And this leads right back into technocracy. This leads back to the concept of Margaret Mead, for example, and many others, and the ideological bend behind left versus right. And it's being embedded into this industry.